morning, good afternoon. I'm sorry I couldn't make it physically there, so therefore I have this video for you with all the slides, and I will also be providing the draft resolution and position paper drafts templates that you can refer to when you're trying to draft your own position paper or draft resolution during the conference or after the conference if you join anymore. Okay. HMUN ROP presented by yours truly, Olivia Pearl. So, first, what is HMUN? Harvard Model United Nations, that's HMUN. And ROP means Rules of Procedure. So, besides HMUN, there's also something called THIMUN, which is the Hague International Model United Nations, which we will briefly discuss later in comparison to HMUN. So, what we're going to discuss today, this is basically like a contents page. This is your learning objective. We're going to discuss HMUN ROP, we're going to discuss position paper drafting, draft resolution drafting, and the difference between HMUN and THIMUN. For position paper drafting and draft resolution drafting, I will provide samples of both of those documents. Please remember the word adjourned. It's super important, remember it. Anyway, first, let's talk about speakers list. There is something called a primary speakers list and a general speakers list, both called PSL-GSL. So in both speakers lists, debate occurs, only the content differs. Now what does this mean? In PSL, you talk about the agendas. You don't necessarily talk about one agenda in depth. You talk about which agenda you want to talk about in depth later. So if there are 2 or more agendas, the council first has a PSL, a primary speakers list. Why? So that you can discuss which agenda is more important for you guys to discuss. So this is essentially allowing the council to vote on which agenda they want to talk about first. And usually this is because in usual MUN councils, at least in Malaysia, there's not enough time to go through both agendas. General speakers list, once you've voted on an agenda in the PSL, you talk about the agenda in a GSL. So in a GSL, there's a lot of functions because there's a lot of motions that you can use within a GSL. So there are about 20 motions that can be used in a GSL, and I will go through them, not all 20, only the most important ones that should be used in beginner councils. And you will also be able to see all the motions in the MYDP ROP handbook. We know PSL, GSL, but how are we going to know who's speaking, right? Alright, so that's where roll call comes in. It's basically taking attendance, and delegates can state their presence in 2 ways. That's present and voting. What's the difference between these two, right? Present allows a delegate to abstain from voting on substantive motions, whereas present and voting means that you as a delegate that has voted present and voting have to vote either for or against a draft resolution or an amendment, anything that's substantive, and I will go through what is substantive later. So let's move on now. Motions. There are mostly procedural motions. It's just for the GSL to proceed in a different way. So there are motions such as a motion to open debate, resume debate, suspend debate, adjourn debate. Do you remember the word? Wow. Adjourn debate, move into voting procedure, and to introduce an unmoderated or moderated caucus. I will explain each of these later, and obviously there are more, but these are the most important ones. A motion to open debate. It's a motion to, open debate. It allows you to start the first council session, and you officially begin the council sessions of a conference by using a motion to open debate. So usually you have roll call first, then someone will be like, Chair, motion to open debate. Yeah, that's how it works. Use this basically only once throughout the conference at the start of the first council session, whichever council session you actually start your proceedings. So usually at the last council session, once you guys are done, you use a motion to adjourn debate, or maybe once you guys are done voting on a draft resolution and passing it, you use a motion to adjourn debate if you guys want to move on. It's up to the chair to figure out whether they want to adjourn the council or not, or whether they want to have like an extension of the council regarding an agenda or whatsoever. It's up to the chair ultimately, but to adjourn debate is usually used at the end of the conference to adjourn the council basically. A motion to suspend debate temporarily pauses council proceedings. So before you go for a break, you'll be like, okay, Chair, motion to suspend debate until 10:15 a.m. Okay, granted, bang, bang. Once you come back from the break, you have to use a motion to resume the debate because you guys can't just show up and start speaking, right? So you have to say, Chair, motion to resume debate. Chair will be like, okay, granted. You continue council proceedings by using a motion to resume debate. Alright, so the four motions that we've learned so far. Motion to open debate, usually used at the start of the council sessions. Motion to adjourn debate, usually used at the end, once everything in the council is basically done. Motion to suspend debate, to go on a break. Motion to resume debate, to come back from the break. A motion to have a moderated caucus. There's a very specific format. It allows the council to discuss a specific topic concerning the agenda. So let's say we're having an environmental topic about global warming. Then you can have a moderated caucus about greenhouse gases. There is a specific format to motion for a moderated caucus, which is one, you have to say motion for a moderated caucus on the topic of insert topic. Then you say for a total speaking time of insert time, let's say 20 minutes. So for a total speaking time of 20 minutes, then you have an individual speaking time as well. So you'll have to say for an individual speaking time of 1 minute. So let's say we want to talk about greenhouse gases. So you can say to the chair, motion to introduce a moderated caucus on the topic of minimizing greenhouse gases with a total speaking time of 20 minutes and an individual speaking time of 1 minute. Simple. It sounds complicated, but it becomes second nature the more you get used to it. The unmoderated caucuses, which, as the name suggests, is unmoderated, it allows delegates to go up to each other's tables and be like, yo, can I be a sponsor on your draft resolution? Oh, nah? Okay, I'll go to the next person. Then you can go around and be like, can I be a signatory? Oh, what do you plan to do? Blah, 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 blah. These are just informal conversations, but they are obviously concerning the topic. Allows informal discussion of the topic amongst delegates. Let's take a break because I kind of need a break as well. Breathe in and breathe out. Alright, let's have a quick recap on what we've learned so far. We have the PSL and GSL, we have present and voting, we have basic procedural motions. So I talked about substantive earlier on. Let's talk about what a substantive motion is. To understand what a substantive motion is, we have to talk about documents first. We have draft resolutions, amendments, and also working papers. Draft resolutions, it basically outlines the solutions that you would like that the council would like to take as per NYDP's definition, actions that the council will take to tackle the topic at hand. So, pretty simple, and I'll also address how they are structured later on in this workshop. Amendments, on the other hand, allows you to make changes to the draft resolution that has been introduced in case you don't agree with a specific clause or you want to add a clause, stuff like that. Proposals to change specific clauses in a draft resolution. So there are two types of amendments. There's friendly and unfriendly. Friendly is approved by the main writers, basically the sponsors of the draft resolution, and unfriendly is not approved by the main writers of the resolution, the sponsors of the resolution. When unfriendly amendments are introduced, the council will have to vote on whether they agree with that amendment. But if it's friendly, it's only the sponsors that have to agree with the amendment, even if the rest of the council doesn't agree. A working paper is usually a document that just contains ideas here and there that the council can implement, or most of the time, working papers can just be in bullet point form or random paragraphs here and there. It doesn't have to be organized unless your chair has a specific format that they want you to submit it in. Basically outline ideas, thoughts, suggestions. You can be very creative with it, and seriously creative. There have been Minecraft working papers before in the local month scene. But it's up to your chair once again regarding the format. We've talked about draft resolutions, amendments, and working papers. Now, what's a substantive motion? So basically, a substantive motion is a motion that allows the council to vote on content that is of substance in the council. Draft resolutions are substance because it's the actions that the council is willing to take. Working papers, substance because it's ideas that the council has. And amendments are also kind of part of the draft resolutions category. How do you introduce a substantive motion? Okay, a motion to introduce a draft resolution. Simple, sweet. A motion to introduce a working paper. A motion to introduce an amendment. All of these substantive motions, before you motion it, you have to send it to the chair so that the chair can vet it, and once the chair gives you the green light, then only you introduce it. What's the difference between a draft resolution and a working paper, right? Okay, I'll tell you. Draft resolutions are a final draft of your proposed solutions and actions that the council is willing to take. So once you've already presented it in council, you cannot change it. You cannot change it. The only way that you can change it is through amendments. Working papers, on the other hand, once you have introduced it into council, you can change it whenever you want. It's just something that is for you to refer to during debate. That's it. But working papers are far more flexible in the fact that you can change whatever content is in there even after you've introduced it. Draft resolutions are set in stone once you've introduced it, unless you get to the amendment stage. We've talked about PSL and GSL. We've talked about present and voting. We've talked about basic procedural motions. We've talked about documents. We've talked about substantive motions. Now, let's talk about yielding, which is the basis of all spoken language. When you're speaking in council, you use third-person pronouns. Things like, I would like to say, we would like to say, stop. Stop! No, it doesn't make sense to refer to a country with multiple people, millions of people, with personal or second-person pronouns, because you're not representing an individual interest. You're not representing your own interest. You're representing a nation's foreign policy. Foreign policy also refers to a government strategy in dealing with other nations. What is a better way to say it? You could say something like, the delegate of Malaysia would like to say. The delegate of Malaysia congratulates the delegate of Japan. Who can you yield to, right? What is yielding in the first place? When you yield your time, you're giving your time to someone. Yielding, who can you yield to? Okay, you can yield to another delegate. The delegate of Malaysia yields their remaining time to the delegate of Macau. You can yield to a specific number of POIs or to any and all POIs. The delegate of Malaysia yields to any and all POIs. And then you can also yield back to the chair, which is usually what people do. And if your speaking time has elapsed, if your speaking time has finished, your time is automatically yielded back to the chair because there's no time left for you to yield to anyone. I mentioned POIs. What's a POI? You're in for a treat. It's not really a treat, but you get what I mean. Points. Points are also an important part of MUN. It looks a little bit funny. Don't laugh. It's fine. A point of order is usually raised to its chairs regarding their misuse of ROP. Usually, delegates could prefer to use point of parliamentary inquiry, which I will cover just in a few minutes, to clarify ROP, because some people may find point of order a bit confrontational. Point of information, POI. In debates, you get up, POI, POI, POI. You can't do that in MUN. In MUN, it's a little bit more... yeah. So you can only ask a delegate a POI if they open themselves up to it. So as a delegate, it's also up to you to open yourself up to POIs if you want to be a stellar delegate and really answer people's questions regarding your policy. There's also a point of clarification. This is used to clarify simple matters from the draft resolution or amendments, and this is not an arena for you to start debating them. No, it's for you to genuinely clarify something with them in case you don't understand what a certain thing in their resolution is trying to say, or what the wording of some sort of phrase is trying to say. Then you have point of personal privilege. It's usually just used for the comfort of the delegate. Let's say you feel the aircon is too cold. Point of personal privilege, Chair, can we turn up the temperature a bit, please? Thank you. That's it. There's also the point of parliamentary inquiry. It's raised by the delegate to clarify a council proceeding. So let's say you're not sure what's going on in the council. So you use a point of parliamentary inquiry. Maybe you zoned out. Or maybe you went to the washroom, you come back and suddenly everyone's in a moderator caucus about something. So you go like, point of parliamentary inquiry, Chair. Yes, delegate. What stage are we at right now? What are we doing right now? Oh, okay, so we're in a moderator caucus about greenhouse gases. But if you want to clarify ROP and proceedings with a chair, if you feel that they have misused ROP, you could be like, point of parliamentary inquiry, isn't the ROP supposed to be this way? Or aren't we supposed to do this as according to the ROP? Stuff like that. We also have a right to reply. Right to reply usually somehow ends up being some delegate's favorite point to bring up, even when they don't need to bring it up. It really depends on whether you as a delegate feel like your nation that you're representing or you yourself have been personally insulted. When you do raise a right to reply, you have to explain to the chair, why do you think it's justified for you to raise a right to reply? Then the chair will be like, I'll consider that. Then the chair will allocate you a specific amount of time to speak and to reply back, and it's used to deconstruct the insult. So you're not supposed to insult the person back. No, don't fight fire with fire. You're supposed to just deconstruct the insult and prove why it's wrong. We have point of order, point of information, point of clarification, point of personal privilege, parliamentary inquiry, and right to reply. Let's take a short break. Breathe in and breathe out. And look at the seal for a bit, because I also need something cute to distract me. Okay, once we have been distracted by the seal, let's move on. Alright, so we've talked about PSL, GSL. We've talked about present and voting. We've talked about basic procedural motions, document substantive motions. Now we've also talked about yielding and points. How do we use everything that we just learned, right? We're not trying to just stick to theory. So, here's the flow of debate. Credits to MYDP. Let's zoom in a little and let's have a closer look. You can see that there's a start, then there's one chart where it allows you to go into primary speakers list and then into general speakers list. In general speakers list, you have multiple motions. The main thing is the introduction of draft resolution. So let's look at the motions that you use during this. To start, after roll call, you have a motion to open the debate. Okay, great. Now you realize, oh, actually we have two agendas. Now what? Okay, motion to move into PSL. Alright, we've already decided, we've already given our speeches in the PSL. Now what are we gonna do? Now we're gonna have a motion to set the agenda. Please write all of this down. After that, you've already set the agenda. Now how are you gonna talk about the agenda? Motion to move into GSL. Simple, dimple. Once you're done writing a draft resolution, this will be a long process. Usually takes at least a day, at least like 4 council sessions to get a draft resolution done. On average, I'd say 6. Once you're done and there's a draft resolution being circulated around council whatsoever, you want to formally introduce it. You say motion to introduce draft resolution, obviously after you've sent it to the chair. Once you have introduced a draft resolution, once you have debated on it, you will have to vote on whether you want the draft resolution to pass. There's a motion to move into voting procedure. So there's a motion to move into voting procedure on the draft resolution. Draft resolutions are usually named draft resolution 1, draft resolution 2. Usually there are about 2 or 3 draft resolutions in one council. Allows people the freedom of choice. I think it's awesome. So once you want to vote on the draft resolution, you say motion to move into voting procedure for draft resolution 1. If it passes, then you adjourn. That's it. Pretty simple. I will go through it again later. Let's talk about disruptivity. 1 through to 13. That's the table of disruptivity. 1 is the most disruptive, whilst 13 is the least disruptive. Let's say someone introduces a moderator caucus. They've introduced their moderator caucus first. Then another person is like, actually wait, I want an unmod of about 5 minutes. Unmod being unmoderator caucus. So which one will they vote on first? You can have a look. Unmod is at 7, while mod is at 9. Based on the disruptivity, the council will vote on 7 first, unmod, because it's the most disruptive. We have the roll call, we have the motion to open debate, we have the motion to move into the PSL or GSL. But if you move into the PSL first, you're gonna have to have a motion to table the agenda before moving into the GSL. Then you have a motion to introduce the draft resolution, a motion to move into voting procedure, and that's about it. Allow yourself a 5-minute break to digest all the information, because I believe it is quite a load, isn't it? It is quite a load. I hope you've had a 5-minute break. Let's talk about position papers. So what's the point of a position paper? Well, the point is it outlines your foreign policy, it allows you to state your proposed solutions, and it keeps you and your chairs updated on your nation's stance. So essentially, it gets you to do the research that you don't want to do. And this is how you write one. There's a specific format that I always tell my delegates to write to, or really just give anyone advice regarding writing position papers. The main points are: you introduce the topic, then you have your nation stance, and then you talk about what your nation has done or what it's currently doing to solve the issue, and then you talk about what your nation's proposed solutions are. So you can write this down if you want, but it's also easily accessible on ima.ngo, my organization. It's the pin post. So if you ever want to refer to something really quick regarding position papers, it's right there. Alright, so let's talk about draft resolutions. Ooh, this is gonna be a lot. So, draft resolutions, there are preambulatory clauses you'll usually see at the start of the document, where it defines the issue and it references any documents that are relevant to the draft resolution. It's kind of a summary of what is addressed within the draft resolution. Then let's talk about operative clauses. So operative clauses, they address the actual issue. It has the actual substance of the draft resolution, what the council plans to do, the actions of the council, and it states what member nations plan to do in regards to the agenda. So your main points are within the operative clauses, and your sort of introduction is within the preambulatory clauses, the preamps that we call, because it's kind of a mouthful to say preambulatory. So preamps, there are specific phrases. You can Google up preambulatory phrases, preambulatory words, and you will see how this is used in the sample draft resolution. Same thing with operative clauses. There are operative phrases as well that you can Google up. I will send you guys the website for that. Alright. HMUN versus THAIMUN. Very simple. Pretty simple. HMUN allows you to have council sessions where you have GSL, where you can use a lot of motions whatsoever. THAIMUN, you have a PSL. You have an opening speech, and then you move on to having basically an unmoderated caucus for the rest of the council session, rest of the conference, until you have reached a draft resolution. THAIMUN is mostly about lobbying. HMUN is a little bit more nuanced in the way that you are allowed to debate, and it doesn't rely solely on lobbying. Let's say in HMUN you're saying something in your speech that someone feels aligns with your foreign policy. Then people will come to you. But in THAIMUN, the main thing that you have is your opening speech. And the problem is nowadays, since everyone uses their devices quite often, most people don't end up listening to the THAIMUN opening speeches. It's a problem. We need to drift away. We need to minimize our usage of devices and respect people that are speaking. So once in THAIMUN, you've already lobbied, you've already introduced a draft resolution, then you start debating on the draft resolution, and from there you vote to get it passed. It's very simple, very, very draft resolution oriented. All councils are, but this is 100% get the draft resolution done and then we can talk. But HMUN is like, we can talk and we can get the draft resolution done as well. Let's be friends. That's it. Wow. I hope you guys understood most of what I said. Position paper sample. Credit go to Suyasha Sri Sukendran. That's one of my good friends. We will be at Sunman sharing HDR. And draft resolution credits go to my council that I chaired back in Champions Cup 2024 Awesome council, love them all so much. And the website will be provided for you. I have sent it to the secretariat. Please enjoy. Bye.